My name is Jake. I'm an alcoholic.
Jake.
I'm grateful to be here tonight. It's good to be back in this meeting. You know, I remember a few years ago sitting in here and, I had just gotten sober and I was just frightened and petrified and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think I'd ever get to fix the things I had going on. And everyone, you guys kept telling me, just keep coming back, just keep showing up. And it'll happen, and here I am a few years later, and so far so good. So thanks for having me tonight. My sobriety date's August 11th of 2016. I have a sponsor he has a sponsor as well. My home group is the Tiga K group. We meet Monday night and Friday night at 8 p.m. Friday night's a speaker meeting. If anyone's interested in getting the Zoom link for that, I can pass it on. So I grew up outside of Buffalo, New York, and I grew up, I had an older brother and a younger sister. My mom and dad are still together today. They still live in the same house I grew up in. And, my childhood was normal. I mean, I was good in school. I excelled in sports. But the one thing that, I remember is I always compared myself to others. I never felt good enough. I always felt like I was less than everyone else. And, that carried on up until, I want to say, what took that away was when I started drinking. I mean, it took that feeling away. Instead of feeling less than everyone else, I felt better than everyone. I felt like I was better than everyone else. That it inflated that ego, and that was a disaster. That started that that was a bad place to start. In high school, I did well. I got accepted to University of Buffalo. So I didn't really go too crazy when I was in high school. I was still living at home with my mom and dad. But once I moved away to go to school, that's when things really took off. It's funny because I started going to school to be a pharmacist, and I know I dodged a bullet there, because I tell you, if I would have stuck that major out, I'd probably be in federal prison right now, probably for the rest of my life. So. But God had my back then. But you know what? In school, it's I didn't really take it serious. I did the bare minimum. The drinking progressed, and of course, that's when the drugs started. There were days where I'd start on a Wednesday, and I'd still be going Sunday, and that's bad, and it's just. I never really looked at it back then like, man, I got a problem. It was just fun. It was all fun, and, as long as I was passing in school. But as the years went on and everything progressed, I made more and more poor decisions, and I got involved with, people I shouldn't have been involved with. Looking back, growing up, I had two sets of friends. I had friends that were doing the right thing, and then I had friends that were doing the wrong thing, and the ones that were doing the right thing are all very successful and have great lives, and the ones doing the wrong thing are either dead or in prison. It's just how it was. But when I needed to pull it together, I was able to do so. When I had to read 6 chapters the night before to take an exam, I could do that and get a C or a B or whatever. And like I said, I did the bare minimum. After college, I moved down to Charlotte, and I got into the construction industry, and we traveled a lot. And the guy I worked for, my boss, he owned the company. He was 480 pounds, 7 feet tall. And he could drink like you wouldn't believe, and we would. I used to try and keep up with him. We'd go out to bars and restaurants and everything, and I would try and keep up with him, and like, I mean, I'd black out so much, and I mean, I can't even tell you the stupid things, the bar fights, and just all the different things that we got into over the years. But I still never really thought I had a problem. I mean, there's a time where his partner asked me to watch his dogs for the weekend. He had 2 little miniature pinschers, and they went up to Pittsburgh to look at a project. So the one night I blacked out, and one of the dogs disappeared. Like, I have no idea what happened to it. To this day, I couldn't tell you where that dog went. But I mean, that should have been like, holy man, you got a problem. Like, you can't, you lost the guy's dog. He had that dog for 14 years, and I had to tell him, like, hey, I don't know where your dog is. And back then, we joked about it. Like, we thought it was funny. And then, just to give you an example, a couple weeks later, we're all partying and drinking, and we used to go to this restaurant in Charlotte, and everyone's a mess, and I'm blacked out, falling over, knocking over racks of champagne glasses, and we come home, we drive home, and in the morning, my boss's wife is like shaking me, and she's like, well, where's Billy? Where's my husband? I had no clue where he was, so she's just staring at me like, what is wrong with you? And it's, so it's like, first I lost this dog, now I lost this guy. He's 7 foot tall. I have no idea where he is. Well, it turns out Billy had the dishwashers at the restaurant, drove him in the catering van to a meeting in Atlanta, threw up on himself on the way there. The dishwasher washed him up, got his shirt looking real nice for the meeting, and he comes back with a huge check for like $200,000. He calls me like a couple hours, an hour away, and he's like, get ready, we're going back to Villa Antonio's tonight. And just that feeling, of knowing that I was going to go get messed up again like that, like I almost got an effect from it. Like, it almost got me high, knowing that I was going to go and have the same night that I just had, even though I almost lost the guy. So, like, it never got better. It progressed. And, I was in the construction industry. I ended up getting hurt. And, that led to pain medication, which, that was like the big downfall. I thought that I could keep that under control. And that just, that became like its own animal in itself. We ended up moving up to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and at that point, these things had progressed so bad. We were working on like a $40 million project. I think we had like $18 million of the work, so we had a lot of responsibility. I was a superintendent. We were just making a ton of money, and I had it was. I could not keep it together. Everyone on the outside thought, wow, man, he's really good at what he does. He really looks like he's got his life together. But no one knew that I had a $300 a day drug habit, and I hid that forever. So it didn't matter how much money I made. I could have made $1 million a year, and I would have found a way to mess it up. The things we do, the things I've done, in those situations, it's just, the progression is just, it's unbelievable. I'm scheming scrap loads coming off the job so I can get an extra couple grand for the week, to support my drugs and alcohol. It's ridiculous. But there were times throughout that I did kind of reel it in a little bit. I ended up dating a girl I met in college, and she lived in Buffalo, and we kind of, prior to that, I was in a relationship, and I had my son was born. I had a child, and like, that was such an amazing thing. It was so exciting, and I probably could have had, a normal life there, but I chose to, I didn't want to be tied down. I wanted to continue drinking, and I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. So I pushed that whole thing away, But, going back to being in Pittsburgh, we're working, and I get into this relationship, and Billy, who I'm working with, he ends up getting sick, and they ended up cutting his leg off. So he had an infection, and he lost half of his one leg, and he said, I need you to go ahead and take everything I taught you and go, find a job and all that stuff. And I was able to get a job as a project manager. But I mean, even there, I still had, I had my life at work, and then I had my life outside of work. And like every now and then it started catching up to me. And whenever I knew, things were getting hot, I was able to recover, and I was able to pull it together and work things out. So I'm in this relationship, this long distance relationship, and it's going on for a while. And my son's in my life; he's coming out to visit me, and I'm going home to see him on the weekend. But I wasn't there. I was there, but I wasn't there. If you guys know what I mean. After a couple years, I ended up taking a job back in Buffalo with a big general contractor as a project manager, and me and this girl got engaged, and I moved home. I stayed with her and her family while we were building this house and all this stuff. We built a house, and to me it was like, wow, all this. I don't really think I was drinking that much back then. I kind of had it together. I started with this new company, and I took off. Like, I climbed that place quick. Within a year, I mean, I was at the top. And it seemed like everything was falling into place, A few months after we closed on the house, she dropped a ring in my hand, and she said that there was someone else, and she left, and that was the last time I ever seen her. But that, not having anything in place, any type of anything, recovery, or, I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't accept that. So that was the start of another really bad downfall. I started isolating myself. I still worked hard, but I mean, the drug use, the alcohol progressed, and the drug use progressed, and I mean, it got really bad. I mean, I did fairly well for myself back then. Before you know it, I mean, I was selling everything in that house to support my habits. I mean, TVs. I'm pretty sure I sold the refrigerator at one point. So at the end, it's just me in this big empty house, and I crashed. This company I worked for, they tried helping me, and they took me to a treatment center, and they said, stay as long as you need, just come back, we need you, this and that. And I think I stayed like 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, I'm ready. I came back, and I was good for another year, and then it bottomed out again. I hit the bottom again because I didn't do any recovery. I didn't go to meetings. I knew everything I was supposed to do, but I wanted to continue doing it my way. So after everything falling apart up there, I thought maybe it's the area. Maybe I need to get out of here and move, and that will be better. So my two best friends had started a business down south, and it was really taking off, and I got with them, and they invited me down to come work with them. And so it's like starting fresh again. I came down. I let a lot of the other stuff go, but I just couldn't. I would not let go of the drinking. And little by little, life started getting better, or at least it seemed like it was. But still, I mean, this it didn't last long before I went back to everything else. I don't know. A couple years in, I ended up meeting this girl, and she had problems with addiction as well. And since I had it all figured out, I decided I was going to try and help her. And what happened there? I mean, we just two of us combined. It was a disaster. It didn't take long. for people at work to start realizing, you know, like I grew up with these people, they're my best friends. They know I wasn't right, and I mean, it was getting real bad. You know, they had come to me. First, we went up to a wedding up in New York, and we were both. She fell asleep at the table in her food or something, and I passed. It was just a mess. So like when they came back from this wedding, they knew something was wrong, and they came to me and they were like, "Listen, we know you're messed up. You know, we want to help you. We're willing to do whatever it takes. We just want the old Jake back. You know, we'll go ahead and send you to treatment. We'll pay you your salary, no matter how long it takes." And you know, I looked at them and I was like, I told them, you know, guys, I'm fine. You know, I got this. And I walked away from everything. I walked away from this career. I walked away from my best friends, and it did not get better. I mean, it got worse. The next year, 10 months, 11 months, I got into some really dark things, and I mean, it was, looking back, I can't even believe we made it through that stuff, but it was some of the craziest times. About 11 months after I left working with them, the Charlotte police kicked my door in. I was sleeping at 11 in the afternoon or whatever, 12, and they kicked my door in, and I got tased. I was in the bathroom flushing heroin down the toilet, and I got tased, and I got dragged out in front of the neighborhood in my underwear, and I got taken to jail, and I mean, it was real serious. I mean, both of us, and another guy that was there too. You know, I had 8 felonies, drug trafficking. I mean, it was bad. And being in jail, you know, I had been going at it for so long that detox was unbelievable. I had so many different substances in my body that I couldn't eat or sleep for like the first, I think it was 10 days there, and it just couldn't. It wouldn't happen, and I got to a point where I was hallucinating, and like medical didn't know what was wrong with me because anything should have been out of my system by then. But I mean, you throw everything that I was doing, it was nuts. So I ended up going to the, they didn't know what was wrong with me, so they put me in the hole. And, you know, they didn't know if I was going to harm myself or what, so I had one of them green turtle suits on. And I remember kind of waking up and coming to, and I was like, oh my, looking around that little cell, and I was like, oh, how did this happen? You know, like I finally was able to eat and sleep, and then it all clicked. Like, I was like, how in the world did this happen? How did my life get to this point? And then, you know, the lawyers started coming and talking, and the plea offers started coming in, and the first plea offer they offered was 70 to 93 months. And the lawyer said, you know, that's the best I can do. You're not going to get anything less than that. And I remember talking to my mom on the phone and telling her, like, yeah, 6 to 8 years. First time in serious trouble, and this is what it is. And I just remember the pain in my mom's voice. I mean, just hearing her cry over that was just horrible. But they didn't, you know, we didn't give up. You know, we found another lawyer in Charlotte, and I sat in Mecklenburg County that time for 10 months. My bail was $250,000. We found this other lawyer, and he came to see me about 8.5 months in, and he said, I can help you. He said, but I need you to get out, and I'm going to get you out on bond. I'm going to get your bail reduced. We're going to get you out. You need to get a job. You need to do some recovery, and I'm going to drag this thing out as long as possible and wait for the right judge and all this stuff. So he got me out about 6 weeks later. Oh, prior to that, prior to this lawyer coming to see me, I would sit there and pray, God, if you can please get me out of this situation. I will never drink or do drugs ever again. Just please. So he ends up getting my bail reduced. I end up bonding out, and I think I got out at 4:30 in the morning, and that noon I was drunk. We were out partying, like me and all my friends. Like it was a celebration, like I was coming home from the war or something, and that drinking led right back to everything else I was doing, and then to top it off, my girl, well, I was married. We got married throughout that stuff. The girl I was married to, she gets out of jail, and she gets pregnant. So both of us are facing 6 to 8 years in prison with a baby on the way, and we're both strung out, and like it's a mess. And the scariest part is those 17 months I was able to, I kept it from everyone. No one had, they might have known, but no one said anything to me. Everyone thought I was sober. I went to one meeting and left, and I went and drank right after it. So kind of the way my mentality was during that, the whole time that was going on, I'm getting ready to go to prison anyway, so I didn't care, and I went even harder than I did before, and I was back to doing the same things I was doing. And that went on for about, like I said, 17 months, and then it finally came time for sentencing. My family came down from New York. Her family was there with the baby, and I hadn't been to sleep in 3 days, and I almost, in the back of my mind, wanted to get sent away at that point because I couldn't do this anymore. I didn't know what the other option was. And when my lawyer came out and said that the judge was suspending the sentence and we were just getting probation, I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. And that was like the prime time to ask for help, but I didn't do it. I thought I could figure this out on my own. And so I kept going. I didn't make it 5 weeks on probation, and I got caught. I got 5 more drug felonies in another county. So I landed back in another jail, and she didn't that time. So I ended up back in another jail, and of course, it's as I'm calling my family and stuff and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with, I'm not taking any responsibility for my actions. I got set up or this and that, whatever. So I sat in that jail for about 3 months, and finally I remember talking to my dad, and he's like, listen, we can help you. We can help you with this. My bail was $250,000. He said, we can help you, but you have to go to treatment. And so I'm sitting in a 23-and-1. You're locked down for 23 hours. You get 1 hour to use the phone or take a shower or whatever. I'm sitting in a 23-and-1 cell, and I said, all right, Dad, I'll go to treatment, but it's got to have a swimming pool, and it's got to be co-ed, and it's got to have a pool, it's got to have a gym. And, they were like, all right, yep, sure, we got you. So a couple weeks later, we pull up at Samaritan Colony. And my friend from Charlotte came and picked me up, and he brought me there. And I remember pulling up over the hill there and seeing this place. And I saw the guys in the program. I saw them out there raking and leaf blowing and cleaning up and washing the van and everything. And I looked at my friend. I said, man, take me back to prison. That's what I was thinking. But it ended up being the best place I could have ever went to. I walked in there the second night I was there. I went up to Mark Christopher, and I said, Mark, we got a problem here. And he was like, well, what's that? And I said, well, my roommate's snoring and I can't sleep. And he looked at me and he said, I didn't sleep for 18 days when I came here. And he smiled and he walked away. But, he was teaching me that, to not pass the problem on to someone else, which is what I've been doing my whole life. So a couple weeks into treatment, it sunk in, like the light came on. Everything started making sense to me. I had that spiritual experience. And, initially my thought was, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to get everyone off my back. I'm going to go back to get my job back. I'll probably start drinking again. I'm just going to stay away from the drugs. But something happened, and it just started making sense to me. So they recommended while I was going to court that I go to stay at a recovery house. And at first I was like, yeah. I felt like I was better than that. Like that was like not something I would do. Looking back, that was the best decision I ever made in my life, was to go there and get my foundation down in recovery. So I went to one of the houses and I got a sponsor, and I did my 90 meetings in 90 days. I walked to his house. I didn't have a driver's license. I used to walk to his house on Sundays to meet with him to read. I did whatever he asked me to do. Whatever he told me to do, I did. And little by little, life got better. Before you know it, I got to go work an awesome job with a bunch of people in recovery. And, it was like everything, by seeking out to God and asking for His help and guidance, it's like everything was falling into place. The promises were coming true in my life. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. About 17 months in, 17 months sober, my lawyer called me and said, you got to go to prison tomorrow. That's the best I can do. 18 months. And it was a Monday night, and I was working with Dad's brothers, and I remember I called Jonathan and said, hey, I got to go to prison tomorrow. Where do you want me to park the truck? And he was like, listen, go handle all your stuff, do what you got to do, and I'll meet with you in the morning. So I went to the Monday night men's meeting. I said goodbye to everyone. I went and said goodbye to some friends. And this is how I know that this thing was working for me, is I even made it home by curfew that night. Like, I made sure to be home by curfew. And the next day, one of the guys from Samaritan College dropped me off at court, and I landed back at the county jail waiting for the prison bus to come out. I landed back in that same jail again, and but this time it was different, because I knew that I had the solution. And I knew that as long as I continued to do what I learned and continue to help people and pass it on, I knew that I would never have to come back to a place like this again. So I sat in the county jail for about 6 weeks, and from there the prison bus came, took me to a camp out by the coast, and it was a big, about 800 people, 800 inmates there. A lot of gang members. You walk in, there's people drinking, smoking weed. It's just really gambling, fighting. It's crazy. And I remember looking at it like, wow, this is really going to be hard. This is going to be tough. Like, if this is what it's like for 18 months, like, I don't know. But I kept praying on my knees throughout that whole process. I kept praying and asking God to guide me and watch over me and protect me. I got there on a Friday, and that Monday, the state had enrolled me in a 90-day drug treatment class at another prison in Lincolnton, which is right outside of Charlotte. So I ended up getting shipped to this camp, and I had been without a meeting for 6 or 7 weeks, and I got put right back into recovery. Like 5 or 6 hours a day, 5 hours a day, I sat in a classroom and with the teacher, and listened and just got to strengthen my my foundation. From there, from there, we all had to tell our stories and stuff, and I shared my story, and I ended up sponsoring a couple guys that were struggling. From there, I ended up going to get, it's just amazing the way that God worked throughout that whole experience. I ended up getting a job at an animal shelter, and I got to leave the prison 7 days a week from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. And I had to go take care of animals and clean up after them and all that stuff. But like, what an amazing experience to be able to go and watch these dogs come in broken and strayed and just scared and frightened, and then to see a family take them home, a week later. I mean, that was just incredible to be able to experience that from in there. From there, I ended up getting work release. I was able to work actual job, and pay back some of the fines and restitutions and all that stuff I had. And then I got released July of 2019. And, when I came out, when I got out, I was kind of all over the place. I had just been 18 months without a sponsor. I was sober, but I didn't feel a part of anything. And I went to a bunch of meetings in Charlotte, and I bounced around, and I kept finding differences at these meetings, or I kept finding reasons why this wasn't the right meeting for me. And I didn't talk to anyone after the meetings. As soon as they were done, I left, and I got in the vehicle, and I took off. And I felt horrible. I felt like crap. And one day I was driving, and I called Johnson actually, and I said, "Hey man, I'm in trouble here. Like, this is what's going on." He said, "Well, tomorrow go to a meeting and just tell them what's happening. Tell them where you've been, what's going on, and tell them that you want to be a part of something. Like, I want to get plugged back in." So I went to this meeting in TGK, and I walked in, and I shared, and I told them what was going on, this and that. And it's just funny how things work. After the meeting, this guy comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, my name's Paul. I got sober in Southern Pines too. I know all them people you're talking about, that you shared about and everything." So I ended up asking him to be my sponsor, and I got plugged back in. Since being released last year, I ended up going back to work for the company I walked away from 7 years ago. They ended up taking me back, and I've been able to make amends with all those people, and I'm back a part of that. I'm working on some things right now, with my family and my children. I don't have to fake a drug test. If I could get drug tested for probation or whatever, I don't have to lie about anything today. I can answer I answer all my phone calls when people call me. One of the biggest gifts of sobriety is, so the baby that was born earlier in my story, she, when I went away, the mother went away, the grandparents got custody, and I've reached out for the last 4 years to try and sit down and talk to them, and nothing has ever come out of it. Letter after letter, text after text, and it never went anywhere. Before this meeting, about 4 o'clock, the grandfather met with me at Starbucks in Southern Pines, and we talked for a good hour and 20 minutes, and I got to make an amends with him. They live out in this area, and we made a deal. We made a deal to work together, and of course I have to earn his trust, and all these things I've learned in recovery. I've learned that it might not always happen on my time, but as long as I continue to do the right thing, it's going to happen. And I know that as long as I don't take a drink or a drug today, I'm one day closer to all that stuff working out. So thank you guys for letting me share that.